Welcome back. We, of course, continue our conversation and discussions around the matric results as the matrics of 2020 received their results today. Professor Moeketsi Letseka, he is the UNESCO Chair on Open Distance Learning, UNISA, from UNISA, and joins us now. Prof, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you for availing yourself to SABC News this afternoon.
You're welcome, Flo. Thanks very much. I'm glad to be on there. I'm glad to share ideas on this massive results.
Yeah, let's talk about the 76.2 pass rate. Is it indeed to be celebrated? I mean, I'm sure I'm being unfair by looking at the IEB results, which this year are sitting at 98.07. I suppose we're comparing two different things. There's obviously more resources and less students in the private sector, but are we to celebrate? And is it fair of me to kind of look at that comparison?
Flo, we need to paint the context here. We need to have a context on which we relate to the matric results. Let's bear in mind that 2020 was an unusual year worldwide. If you take the 2019 matriculants and you cascade down 2019, 2018, 17, you are looking at matric students, the classes that wrote exams of, reasonably healthy academic years where they had the opportunities to sit in classes, to go to the laboratories, to be able to meet with their teachers, to consult. But 2020 class was a different class. It's a class, remember, that in March, the president made that important announcement of imposing general lockdowns because the outbreak of COVID-19 had come through. And from then on, the message was very clear: stay at home. Stay at home and respect social distancing. Avoid being in places where there will be congregation. So schools are places where people congregate. And the COVID-19 protocols made that completely a no-go area. So we are looking at a class that never actually spent time in classes. I listened to the Director General yesterday, Mr. Msweli, when he was making his presentation. And one of the things that he noted was that the class of 2020 was marked by very uncharacteristic events. For example, he made reference to prolonged school closures, regular absenteeism of students. He made reference to absenteeism of teachers, but he also made reference to emotional and social well-being of both teachers and learners. So if the world as a whole was not in class, the schools were closed. I'm a member of UNESCO, and one of the things that I always make reference to is that on the 25th of March last year, the Director General of UNESCO, Ms. Audrey Azoulay, announced that globally, a total of 1.6 billion learners were out of school as a result of school closures, as a result of or due to COVID-19. South Africa was not peculiar. We are in that space. The kids never set foot in class. So instead of looking at the number that now experienced a 5.1 decline, we should be asking ourselves, first of all, whether was it a normal year? It was an abnormal year. And I believe that in these abnormalities, we need to be satisfied with 76.2. It could have been worse.
So you would then agree with the minister. I think yesterday the minister used the words, she said, I was expecting a bloodbath. Would you then agree with what the minister said? I mean, the drop is of 5.1%. And I think many people were surprised that it wasn't indeed higher. Were you expecting it to be even less than that? Or higher, rather.
I feel that an interview with Amanda Watson of The Citizen on Sunday, and she was asking for my projections. And I was aware that at that time that Professor Servaas van den Berg of Stellenbosch University, who is an educational economist, had projected a 5, maybe 5+ decline. But my view was that we should be looking at between 5 and 8%. And if we don't get 10% decline, we should consider ourselves fortunate. Yes, I expected worse than what we did. So for me, as an educator, knowing what happens. By the way, I'm a former school principal, so I understand what was going on in the school. And if children cannot be in class for the whole year, and we can still come out of that horrible year with a 76.2, I think we did well. We need to look at the state of resilience, of perseverance. I think our class of 2020 demonstrated maturity, resilience. They basically showed that in terms of a crisis, they can adapt, they can come out of their cocoons and do things. They did things differently. And 76.2 is, I think, is a welcome result. Nothing to write home about, but better than what some of us expected. I actually expected a below 70%.
You know, the learners are back at school now. It's only been a couple of weeks that, they've been back at school. And I wonder if you've kind of already had a bit of an assessment in terms of where things are going already compared to last year. It might be early to start to predict where, the percentages will be at the end of 2021. But are you of the view that there were indeed lessons that were learned? Not just the Department of Basic Education has admitted that they've had to learn quite a few lessons from the year that we had last year. But are you of the view that schools in general, whether it's parents, learners, caregivers, have learned certain lessons that will indeed help us going forward? I mean, it was a new thing last year where parents and learners and teachers had to start getting used to online learning, for example. I just wonder if this year, as we've kind of gotten into that and learned more lessons, if things might then improve to an extent that the matric results are significantly higher at the end of 2021, because last year was really a whole different thing that nobody anticipated or expected.
Sure. Look, every crisis brings lessons. Every crisis takes human beings and humanity from comfort zones to levels where we are forced by the circumstances of our own existence at the time to adapt. I can point out to quite a few things. COVID-19 forced us all to come to realize that learning cannot only take place in classes. COVID-19 says we can't be in classes. We have had to move online. I mean, the requirement for teaching and learning to go online is a major challenge, particularly in our country, but it's a major challenge worldwide. Inequalities are not just here in South Africa. Inequalities are all over the place. I actually worry about 23 to 30 million people who are classified by Statistics South Africa as people who are living below the breadline. And that's where we draw the majority of our learners. If we say, let's go online, we are looking about homes that do not have electricity, homes where the monthly or annual earning is such that such families might not be able to avoid the gadgets, smartphones, tablets, and laptops, or even internet connectivity. We need to find ways of saying, how do we turn our most economically deprived communities into Wi-Fi friendly zones? How do we hold cellular companies? Because there's a complaint among learners, even when you go to NSFAS or higher education, there's always a complaint that learners are not able to access website, at least now, with the pressure from Higher Education Minister Blane Nzimande. I'm grateful that there are some websites that have now been declared zero rated. But the question of data, which is obscenely expensive, that can be subverted if we can get cellular companies to make pledges through their corporate social responsibilities to say, we are going to cross-subsidize data. We are going to make provision of free gadgets. Let's make sure that this is our contribution to education. This is how history will judge us. In this country, cellular telephones, and I'm not embarrassed, I will mention them, Vodacom, MTN, Cell C, even our own Telkom, they need to be called to come to the party and consider that they have a moral obligation to contribute tangibly towards improving education. So to answer your question, the crisis is going to be there. COVID-19 is not going to go away. The vaccines are here, but of course we are now dealing with variants, and the variants are making arrival or attainment of normalcy something that is uncertain. I don't envisage that by the end of 2021, we'll have arrived at normalcy where we can say kids can come to school. So we're still going to continue to be cautious, to be careful. We're still going to be expected to respect the protocols of COVID-19, to social distance, to wear masks, to sanitize, to wash our hands, and to make sure that there is that close to 2 meter spacing in class that has to occur. But then when you consider that a lot of our schools, particularly in rural and townships, are congested. I was a principal in Kwaggafontein, and I taught matric students. I used to walk into a class, there would be between 65 and 70 students in class. This is the norm. We need to deal with that. We need to get the minister to provide prefab classes so that those congestions can be dealt with, so that we can then attain social distancing. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done, first of all, in ensuring that almost all our spaces, whether it's township, informal settlement, or rural, they are Wi-Fi friendly. That at least there is a modicum in which the tablets, the smartphones, all the gadgets are available to everybody else, so that learners can then begin to access that. So we then need to also get the education to parents. Parents need to come in and play a role. They need to maintain that education. The education starts at home. If kids see that the homes are compliant with the protocol and they go to school, then that education continues. The teachers, we need to continue to re-educate them, to retrain them, just to make sure that those safety mechanisms are sustained and it's not just a once-off. In that way, we'll maintain life. We'll then begin to see that there is progress in the manner in which teaching and learning can occur and yield those kinds of results that we need.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for your input. Much appreciated. Thanks for giving us your time here on SABC News. Thank you, sir. All right, that's Prof. Moeketsi Letseka from UNISA speaking to us there about the matric results, and that 76.2% that was announced yesterday by the Minister of Basic Education, down, of course, 5.1%, and indeed agreeing, the professor agreeing with the minister that there was an expectation of a bloodbath, and actually the matric results being lower than what we saw, the percentage being a lot lower than what we ended up seeing. So that is the professor there. Right.